Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Technical. Back again here with episode 23. Yes, 23.
Yep.
Keaton's room changed a little bit. I think he just changed the direction of his camera.
Oh no, I got a new desk, and we had to move it, so
Oh,
it changed the whole orientation of the room.
okay.
So
Well,
we're upgrading. We're growing here.
yeah. We're moving in the right direction. We're moving in the right direction. Which, speaking of that, we got a ton of views on our last video. Thanks to my clickbaity title and clickbaity thumbnail. But anyways, we're going to talk about Apple's new VR headset. And I've watched a little bit about it. Keaton, you probably know a little bit more than me. What's everybody thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about it. I don't necessarily know how
The ins and the outs.
the ins and the outs of it. Yeah, but this was at Apple's big developer conference yesterday. I think was when it was announced as of this recording, and everyone knew that they were going to come out with this new augmented reality / virtual reality goggles, but I think everyone assumed it was going to be terrible, or just assumed it was going to be memeable, I guess, sort of like Meta has been with their whole metaverse thing. It's been, even though Oculus is pretty cool, it's been completely memed into being a stupid thing, which is what you never want. And Apple, I definitely think, completely avoided that yesterday with their release. It looked like extremely sleek. It looked, I mean, it doesn't look like something you'd want to wear in public. Of course, it looks like you're, some sci-fi, but the design is nice. And then the demos looked pretty awesome. Like the way like it can track your eye movement. Your eyes basically are used to select certain apps, photos, and then you move your hand to flick through. It just looked like a extremely futuristic device, which I guess is what Apple sort of ushered in the future of devices by putting a computer in your hand, and now they're trying to make it what they're calling spatial computing, so to where your computer and your screen is integrated into your sort of your entire environment. But I don't know if it's like, it looks awesome, but it also could be pretty dystopian at the same time.
Yeah. It reminds me of like a spacesuit goggles, like fishbowl-esque. Like that sits on your eyes looks like snowboard goggles, and then it kind of rounds out. But apparently it's full of just cameras. Like it has like 12 cameras or something on it, and it takes pictures of your face and displays them for everybody else to see. So
yeah,
because you're not seeing through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're not able to see through or people couldn't see directly into your face. But you said it right. It like takes a picture / live video sort of your eyes, sort of, and uses machine learning
as a screen on the outside so people can see your eyes.
On the outside so people can
but you can also, it takes pictures of the outside, so it shows you what's outside, so you can like interact like it's your actual like you're actually seeing.
Yeah.
But you're not actually seeing through it. It's just taking pictures, which seems kind of weird. But it's probably the easiest thing to do. Maybe not the cheapest, but the easiest thing to do instead of like having something that's transparent that's overlaying onto it. Now, granted, this thing is like $3,500, $3,600. So hopefully you get 12 cameras with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has different apps that interlays graphically in space that you can see, and it reminds me a little bit of that eye tracking that those OC students did. In college,
for
ALS, right?
ALS patients, so that aren't able to communicate or move, but they can type with their eyes. So I guess that's what the app would be based on. The app,
yeah, and it's kind of like, it's probably not a replacement for your phone though, but it feels like it could be that way. Like, say this becomes mainstream enough, or they can make it small enough that it's, because it has apps on it. Maybe it goes with your phone, but it has apps on it, and you just replace your phone with this.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal, you know, is to this is the first iteration. So I think of course it's gonna be a little bit clunky and big, but I think the ultimate goal is like glasses. Literal just like your regular
The Google
glasses.
specs.
Yeah, yeah, the Google specs that got memed into non-existence, but made cool and popular. And I think that's the goal. I don't know how long it will take to get there, and I don't know how many people will adopt this. But yeah, I mean, it definitely looks awesome. I thought one cool idea about it, like just from a technological point of view, not really from a societal point of view. Right now, I think we'll talk about the societal stuff in a bit. But from a technological point of view, it's incredible. It seems incredible. I thought the idea that they had and talked about like where it can also video. You can take videos with it, and so you see the videos later on as if it's first person, of course, because it was first person. And I always think back to there's a guy who just went viral at I think the live golf tournament or maybe at one of the PGA Tour tournaments, and everyone was taking a video of whoever was golfing that was all around him, except for one guy. He's just sitting there enjoying a beer. Definitely an ad placement, I think, or at least the company reached out to him to become the ad guy because he was the only one like living in the moment. And I was like, oh, okay. Now you get these goggles and you can watch something live in the moment, but also record it perfectly naturally and have an extremely high res video of it later, which is kind of cool to me.
Yeah, so it's internally, I think it's four or two 4K screens, and it's important. I think it's important that it's 4K. So something that I thought a while back was we're going to get to screens that are going to be better than our eyes. Like our eyes can't see
Mm-hmm.
this well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even between 4K and 8K, like it's very minuscule on the amount that we can see. But it's just important for the technology to be advancing like it is for things like this, because if it was 1080p, it would be very grainy because of how close it is to your eyes. So making it 4K or eventually 8K means the screen can be even closer to your eyes and won't look as grainy. Because if you have from 20 feet, a 1080p is going to look almost as good as a 4K at 20 feet. Our eyes can't tell really the difference at that distance. And so up close, it's very important to have such a high resolution for things like this. And I think we've talked with Chance before about how these kind of are the future, like goggles, Oculus goggles are the future for like work environments, because you can have multiple in virtual reality you can have multiple screens and you can be doing multiple things on those and working in a comfortable position. And there's just a lot of pros to be able to work through things like this, doing your design work or accounting, and
Yeah, I
having
mean,
multiple screens is super beneficial.
I think I think VR has had this really slow adoption curve, but the one area that has been adopted pretty quickly is in certain work environments. So like take medical training. Well, it's 100 times better to train on, you get the full 3D experience through a VR headset than to train on a real life human for the
Or
first
even a
time.
cadaver.
A cadaver, yeah, it's much cheaper too. So that's been one huge area. And then I think what we did talk about with Chance maybe was about the flight simulators that are, I guess, really high quality through different VR systems. And so yeah, you said it right. It's like eventually a lot of works will adopt it, and the remote work, the people that stay remote will end up probably adopting some form of this to sort of simulate a community, I guess, aspect of work, which I don't necessarily think is a big deal, but I think works think that's a big deal because it keeps some people around. That's the one thing about remote work. You don't have any connections, so you can just hop from job to job. So, but whenever you feel sort of a bond to your coworkers, which you build in person or in the future virtually in person, I guess the next closest thing. That'll probably change quite a bit.
Yes. So I took a tour of an air defense, or not air defense, a Department of Defense contractor, so private company, but does government contracting. Took a tour of their facility once, and they use VR for like air flight simulators, for like working around in a cockpit. And then another cool thing they do is they use it to do repairs. So like you can do on-job training, like you said, but you're doing like a repair on an airplane. Like, okay, I need to replace this sensor that's in the nose for whatever it is, and you can have detailed instructions, and it'll have like on the side of your Oculus or whatever your Vision Pro from Apple, it'll have a checklist on there, and it'll tell you the step by step on how to do the repair, replace the sensor. So you'd you do like a little check on it, virtually. And even sometimes it'll show you pictures. Like you can see a picture of the repair that you're doing live. Yeah. And then another cool feature they had is it was integrated with some of their tools. And so they have this handheld that would read current and different things and say, okay, there's 100 relays in here. The typical current that's supposed to be going through like right now is 0.25 amps. Okay, take your tool, you put it on there, it reads it, and it says this one's good. Okay, check relay 1. Put it on there, it automatically reads it, automatically puts a check. Okay, that was relay 1, it's good. Go to the next relay. Okay, ooh, that one's reading 1.125 amps. Okay, this one's bad. It puts a red check. And you just go through your whole checklist of all the different things, and then you go back through. It says, okay, 2 was bad. You can recheck, or you can, here's the instructions to replace it. And it's like it just like builds on itself. Obviously, that takes a lot of manpower to get those lists in there, and the typical ranges for different components and stuff like that. But it's all right there. You don't have to carry around a book with you. You don't have to write down, okay, this one was good, this one was good. It just does it automatically. So it's super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in that case, you have to to get all that stuff developed and put into, say, an Apple Vision Pro, you have to have developers, I guess, making like specific apps for your specific use case. Is that?
I wouldn't even necessarily say app. It could be just writing an instruction list, like that might be like you could put this in Excel of these are the step 1 through 12 on how to do this. So it doesn't know it automatically, but you do it once, and if you have to make this repair 10,000 times, it's worth it. Now, if you're doing the repair twice, okay, you may not want to spend the man hours to go through with it.
Yeah.
But it could be, for an everyday use, you could use similar, but say it's with your car. Okay, I need to know how to, replace the oxygen sensor on my 2006 Buick LeSabre, and it looks up the YouTube video, and maybe if you had AI involved with it somehow, or another app integration app,
it will be.
it could import a list from the video into your Vision Pro and create a manual for you, and even have pictures, and you just do it yourself.
Yeah. So kind of what I was sort of getting at and going towards was it's going to be like a software developer.
It's going to be what? Sorry, what was that?
It's going to be like a whole new ecosystem for software developers. Sort of. Back.
Lost you there.
Yeah.
It's going to sort of like what?
It's sort of like the iPhone of it, or originally was. Probably not as extreme, or not as many people are going to be able to make apps or software as they were with the iPhone, but it will be a whole new area that developers can jump into, which is why I think the price is so high right now. Apple, they're probably not going to make a ton of money off of the Vision Pro just on a margin basis, but I think what they want to do is to engineer it to become cheaper, get their costs down. But at this time, at this point, the only people who are going to really buy it are super rich people and developers, because they want that, to get ahead of the curve on putting software out there. So I think it's going to become just a massive new software development ecosystem that people are going to rush into, sort of like AI has become all of a sudden. And when you integrate both, like you said, that's that's the future.
Well, don't let this fool you. This is completely a computer. This is a computer that you wear on your eyes. It's got the new M2 chip or whatever.
Yeah.
And probably their own proprietary. Is M2 a CPU or a GPU? Do you know?
CPU, I'm pretty sure.
So it probably has their own proprietary GPU as well. It's got to with 4K screens and 12 cameras. It's got to be able to take all those inputs. So this is very much a computer. It's now, as somebody tweeted, this is literally WALL-E. Like, we're just gonna be sitting on our chairs, gaining weight, watching our screens like this. But I think overall, for something this cool, I don't think $3,500 is really that expensive. It's expensive, but for what you're getting, I don't think it's that expensive.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nothing else like this is on the market. So
do you know how much the Oculus is?
No.
Oculus is way cheaper, but this looked 100 times better than the Oculus. So yeah, I guess you're right. That $3,500 is not a lot to spend if it really is as good as it looks in the advertisements. The Oculus is about 400, and
which Oculus is a Meta thing, right? Facebook.
Yeah. Facebook Meta bought Oculus several. I actually think it's pretty awesome. Have you used one before?
No, Chance had one, but I never used it.
I think it's really underrated. It's a lot of fun. It's not, regular video games you can spend hours on, but the problem with VR is actually the opposite of WALL-E. Is the games all require activity, and so it makes you tired. You don't want to spend hours on them, but the games that you play are fun. They're not the most advanced games, but it's been a lot slower of a development than I thought it would be. I really thought they'd have like fully integrated Call of Duty in Oculus, and that just hasn't come about.
Yeah, and I think it's just because it's kind of not proprietary is maybe not the right word, but it's more custom, like software.
It's not open source. Like they don't have an ecosystem of developers on top.
Like it probably requires some type of engine, and these Quest things are probably not all that powerful. Mm-hmm. The Apple Vision or Vision Apple is going to be super powerful with that new chip. So you might be able to play some pretty high tech stuff on it. Maybe not like be good at it, but yeah, I think it's just like more of it's a custom thing, and not a ton of people already like have them.
Yeah.
Let's see, what do they call? Is it called Apple Vision?
Apple Vision Pro. While you're looking it up, I would just say I want to add is that Meta has spent like $20 billion in the last year on this, and they completely changed their brand from Facebook to Meta, and doing that because they wanted to launch into this metaverse. So they were like the first movers. They poured money into it, and investors were super down on it, and Facebook stock collapsed, although it's recently kind of recovered. But people memed the heck out of Zuckerberg and Facebook for this, and yeah, some of their stuff didn't look as good as Apple's, but it's just kind of wild, like when you compare the two, the reaction to the two, because Facebook was the first mover on this, and they got destroyed. I think that maybe I'm sure Apple was a little bit nervous coming out, and and displaying this, and then they got the complete opposite reaction. It seems like.
So yeah, not available till 2024, but I was trying to see what size and resolution. I mean, I guess the resolution's 4K. Because an Oculus 3 is going to be a 2064 by 2020-08, which I guess is 4K. Yeah. Not a lot is out because the Meta 3 Quest is not out yet.
Yeah. Oh, and so Meta's probably prepping their team's probably on like high alert right now. They're probably like spending 80 hours in the labs trying to pull something together.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. So theirs is not going to release until September. Okay. So they have a little ways.
Yeah.
Which they have conceptual of it, and it does not have the pass through like Apple's does. So it looks like it has cameras on the front of it, so maybe it will render the space in front of you.
Yeah.
But not be passed through. Because like the cool thing about the Apple thing is they can see your eyes. They see a video of your eyes.
Yeah.
So that you can interact with them. I'm sure you can turn that off if you are making funny faces, but it is going to be a lot cheaper. I mean, the Meta 3 is retail $500.
Oh wow! Okay, that's a huge difference.
40% smaller.
But also, people trust Apple way more than they trust Facebook, and I don't know if that was because of politics or Apple has had a pretty strong privacy policy as compared to Facebook. I don't know if that's still around. I think we kind of talked about it a long time ago.
They talked about it in the conference or whatever. When they were
really?
About the new, is it iOS 17?
Mm-hmm.
I think is what it's called. So their new software for their phones. They talked about how everything's end-to-end encrypted, as far as messages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which you're like AT&T or your T-Mobile, your carrier can still see your messages. So I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But I remember several years ago, we talked about this on a previous podcast. Several years ago, somebody committed a crime and the police wanted to get into the either victim or what's
perpetrator?
Perpetrator.
Criminal.
Yeah. I don't know if it's perpetrator or the criminal or
the victim.
Or the victim. But they wanted to get in their iPhone, and Apple said, "Come back with a warrant." So, like I said, I don't know I don't know which side they're protecting.
Yeah.
But I mean, either side, I was kind of like,
"That's impressive."
That's impressive because they had a passcode on it.
Yeah.
And they were wanting they couldn't figure out the password, so they wanted a backdoor in, and Apple said, "Pound sand," and come back with a warrant. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
And so this end-to-end encryption thing, I think it's important that they always reiterate that they are trying to protect people's data. Because there's so much data that we have on our phones. How many times have you typed your social security number into a website or something like that on your phone? Because something that a lot of people don't know is there can be a virus on your computer that just mimics your keystrokes. So they know when you type in certain numbers, and so like they can memorize your stuff. But so that's important for Apple.
Yeah.
And as far as like trusting Facebook, they got in trouble several years ago with data, not only data leaks, but like they got sued, I think, for using people's data when they said not to.
Yeah.
So I know they got sued over that. So they haven't been in a good light. And then the whole Russia thing, like they were infiltrated by. What was that? Sorry.
Oh, not the political part.
Oh, I was saying, political part.
Okay,
by Russian bots.
Yeah, yeah.
It just seems like everything is Facebook's fault.
Yeah.
Not that it necessarily is, but like it seems like everything just falls onto them and it's their fault. So
There's like a theory that I kind of believe. I mean, first off, Facebook is very intrusive on data, but I don't think they're necessarily any more intrusive than most of the apps, most of the things that you use day to day. Obviously, Apple's pretty good, but the theory on why is Facebook such a scapegoat is because they actually are extremely politically powerful. And not that they flex that power; it just allows people to become extremely politically powerful on it. And the original gatekeepers of information, the sort of mainstream traditional media, doesn't like that. You could see the New York Times, stock collapses around Facebook inception. Facebook goes vertical, basically, essentially destroys the idea of the old mainstream media. It becomes a new tech media industry, and so that I think that's why they became this big uh, target for media to beat up on, and it actually they successfully changed perceptions of Facebook. I think the general consensus on it is pretty negative.
yeah, the way that you can be targeted, the way that it can echo chamber, I think on Facebook is pretty substantial. It can be kind of a pretty bad thing. But I think a lot of what saved them is that people's data hasn't really been used that harmful yet. Like it hasn't been that harmful to people, and so they're kind of just like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, okay, somebody knows that I like the movie
And I
Up.
like puppies. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like puppies. Like, okay, who cares?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's been anything like super harmful. So I think I know I'm that way a lot of the times. I'm like, well, they already have my information somehow, so what does it really matter?
Yeah.
Even though I tend to be a pretty private person with some of that stuff, like every time I get asked on an app, I say ask not to track. I still try, but at the same time, I'm like, does it really matter?
Yeah.
They have my data anyways. They're gonna
Yeah.
buy it from TikTok, so I don't know. I think a lot of what saved them is people just not caring as much.
Yeah, I agree. So before we kind of transition, you want to talk like about whether or not the idea of like a VR widespread VR is like super dystopian in society or not? Like, what do you think about that?
As someone that's not smart, what does dystopian mean?
Like negative, a dystopian narrative is like
Great
Wall-E
suffering or
essentially.
injustice? Okay.
You know,
I had to look it
like
up.
what was the exact definition?
It says relating to or denoting an imaginary state or society where there is great suffering or injustice.
Yeah, so utopian societies are like the dreamy, perfect view. You never get to utopian society. The idea of the Soviet Union was they were trying to make this communist utopia, but it became a dystopia, communist
So
dystopia.
opposite. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the dystopian vision is, you see it in like Wall-E, those movies where everyone is just sitting all day in their VR world and gets all fat and the earth
Well, so
degrades.
how I see this, maybe I see this in such a positive light. I think it's super cool. I'm not seeing a ton of negatives because, like with regular VR, I see the negative of like I need to be in my home. I might be moving around and stuff in my home, but if you're working from home, you're using this VR headset. Okay, you might realize, hey, I haven't been out of the house in 3 days. What's going on? But with this, with the Apple one, I don't know what it is, but I can see like hundreds of people just walking down the street with this on. Now, granted, you're going to get robbed because it's worth $3,600, and like they're just going to rip it off your head and run away. Now, granted, if you have like a good battery life, I could see a bunch of like I don't know because of the pass-through thing. It would be such a big flex to just be walking down the street with you and your friends, and you're all wearing one of these, and one side of it you got photos, memories playing from Snapchat or something, and you're just walking down the street like waiting to go to a bar or something or a club,
and
you're just hanging out. Like I could totally see that being a thing.
But do you think that like disconnects people? You know, if I'm doing this podcast and I have the vision on, wouldn't you constantly thinking, is he actually paying attention right now, or is he, watching his
watching Facebook memories or something,
Facebook
or
memories from
he's
last
scrolling
year?
through Facebook? Well,
Yeah,
you might think that a little bit, but what's the difference between that and you just staring at your phone?
Yeah. Well, I hate it when people stare at their phone when we're talking.
I mean, I do that sometimes, but I've kind of been like trying to, like when I go out on a date, I try not to have my phone out at all.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Like, or going out with friends, like I try not to have my phone out. If we're watching a football game or a TV show or something, like okay,
yeah, same.
But I don't know. I don't really see this as a bad thing. I besides you getting robbed, like walking down the street in Midtown wearing this and getting robbed, I think it could turn out pretty cool. Like,
yeah.
Now, granted, it's $3,600, so not a lot of people are going to be doing it. Like, or from the fear of being robbed, and also not a lot of people having because it's expensive.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the flex aspect of just walking down the street with this on. You might not even be doing anything on the screens, but just like walking. Like, I don't know. What's your thought?
I mean,
you think you'd be disconnected?
Well, first I'll build onto that and just say, like, imagine everyone walking down the street. This is like sci-fi futurist, like any sci-fi movie. That's what you look like with this thing. Does that sort of launch finally a sci-fi future just because we have the initial like aesthetic, so it just becomes lodged in humanity's mind that this needs to become the new aesthetic? That I think that could be possible. I mean, I don't know. I'm indifferent about the whole thing in general because I definitely think it's awesome. Like I'm super, super excited about it. But then I also think about how addicted we are to our phones. And I wonder how much more addicted could we become when we have a super high res screen right in our eyes. And not only that, but the eyes are essentially an extension of the brain. And I don't know how much information the eyes can convey, but some constant machine learning and AI algorithms could probably figure out what you want faster than you even registered in your brain, in your conscious brain through your eyes. I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't put it past us because that's the very first point of communication is the eyes. So it's almost like, through the AI feedback loop of information from yourself, it can give you even more addictive apps or content. And I feel like that could become the dystopian future where everyone is so addicted that what's the point of even living real life because the virtual life is even better.
Yeah, my last comment on it, or last point about it, I guess, and the negative side is our attention span is horrible now with something that we have to devote our attention to by looking down or looking, and it's very obvious that you have to, like, that you're looking at your phone or you're distracted. But in something like this where it's not, and you're trying to live real life while doing something else, would destroy your attention span because you will not stop. Like, at least with your phone, somebody talks to you, okay, let me put my phone away. This, you're literally looking at them while looking at something else or communicating with them. So yeah, that is a negative aspect I see. I don't know if attention span's the right word, but
no, I think it is. I think
that will be detrimental.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect word. And I've talked about this several times. So like new technologies widen, everyone talks about inequality and they're always talking about like financial inequality, but there's another type of inequality that is more controllable, and I call it discipline inequality. I think new technologies widen the gap between the disciplined and the undisciplined. And if you're disciplined with these new technologies and you use them correctly, you're going to get way far ahead in life. But most people are pretty undisciplined in general. And so they're going to fall behind really rapidly with super addictive technologies. I mean, TikTok is the most recent example, but this is going to be another level, I think. So figuring out how to narrow the gap between the disciplined and undisciplined, or I guess bring that, not necessarily narrow the gap, but bringing the undisciplined over to the disciplined side is always the goal, I think, with technology. But it tends to not be what happens with it. I mean, my best example is AI. You can learn anything you want through AI on Chat. Hop on ChatGPT, learn it really well, or you can just ask it to write the essay for you and not learn anything. Disciplined versus undisciplined.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any more final thoughts on this?
No, not on this. I will say, real quick, no continuous glucose monitor announcement for the Apple Watch at the conference, so that was disappointing. I guess that prediction will be wrong.
Well, next year.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, this has been Something Technical. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.